the second part of our Monday Double Bill, I'm joined by Adam Mackey of the Dust Coda.
With any band, when you get a new singer come in, everybody's always kind of waiting, aren't they? Because it's the sound of the, it's the voice of the band. It's difficult,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. No, I get it. It's the whole thing's really weird because also, if you think of, that lineup with John, pretty solid for,
while.
we've been on the scene properly since probably a year before the debut came out. Like, people were aware of us with the singles before, so that's 9 years. But the great thing about Andrew is the kind of cool story in this day and age is we played really early. So going back to when I was saying how old that original lineup is, we played a gig with Andrew and his old band Trident Waters at that great North London, sadly gone, rock bar called Big Red 7 years ago maybe, and that's how I first met him. Really dig the band, and there's that lovely thing that musicians and bands, we're all very well mannered and polite, but you also have an eye for talent when you spot it. And I'll never forget, I was like, they're good, and that's because of him. I can't stress enough the early days. I've genuinely been blown away, and that's almost disconcerting to him and his talent. But I'm so buzzing and excited. Like, he is owning this and just nailing it, and it's really, I can't. My own expectations from the whole process and just being like, no, it's a journey, we'll get through it, blah blah blah. Now I'm like, man, let's just do this tour and take over the world again, because the sky's the limit. Honestly, and I think what I'm really hoping is his journey will be like, maybe he'll discover quite how good he is with this and grow into it. It's that exciting.
So I'm here with Adam of the Dust Coda. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course, you're kind of at this kind of precipice of moving into this new era. Obviously, new singer, but a thing I love to do on this show to kind of start things off is, to have a look at at the beginnings, how it all began. So going right back to the beginning for you, did you have kind of a moment when you were growing up, or when you first started playing, where you decided, this is what I want to do, I want to be a musician, in particular a guitarist? Or was it kind of a gradual thing for you?
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, we've all kind of got that story, right? That moment. Going right back to it, my moment, if you like, was I was 7 years old. And I remember vividly, my parents took my brother out, and I had a babysitter, brother a few years older than me. And next day, chirpy little 7-year-old, I'm like, where have you been? What have you done? Blah, blah, blah. What are you on about? And my parents were like, we went to see Eric Clapton. We're like, oh, I'm like, who's that? What are you on about? Who's that? And we got in the car that day, and showing my age here, they got the cassette out. And it was a Journeyman album, and I still never forget this moment. In the car, 7 years old, track 3, it's called Bad Love, and it opens with this riff, and I was like, what is that? And my parents were like, that's the electric guitar. I was like, how do I get that? How do I do that? And then the rest, you kind of go on that journey, from being a very excitable young 7-year-old, having failed at the violin quite miserably, put my parents through that. It's not the nicest of instruments to play badly at home, right? Um, Learned classical guitar at school, but by age I was like 13 and stuff. I was just too into going down the electric route, rock and blues, and all that good stuff, and it kind of grew from there, really. I mean, I'm just trying to work out how old I was. I would have been about 10, I'm guessing.
Mm,
7 from here in Clapton, but one my point is I was 10 and 91, and I had Blood Sugar Sex Magic on tape. I had Both Use Your Illusions on tape.
mm,
I had the Black Album on tape. I had Soundgarden on tape. That wonderful, and Nevermind. That
mm,
year of like the Bible of
yeah.
rock, those releases. I absorbed all of that when it was just this fresh, amazing, massive thing. And
Mm.
you can hear the influences in the Dust Coda, right?
Mm.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist if you know your rock music to hear that kind of influence in patches.
Mm. Obviously we've mentioned a couple of bands there, but I feel when you're in that era, you kind of everybody has that first band, right, that they really resonate with. Did you have kind of one in particular that was like your band, or was it
I
just a
know, I
few?
know I know what you mean because it could be anything. Is
Mm.
it loyalty is a strong thing because also you can't, even though you outgrow them, you can't let go because you're like, no, I won't shut that out because they were so special back then.
Yeah.
And that could be to anything in life, right?
Mm.
Especially arty and creative. But not. Here's another way of summing up, and I'm kind of dating this era in a great way. But then, my teenage years, um, so you're kind of mid-90s, London born and bred, got family from the north and big Geordie and Scottish roots, but London born and bred, that era, if you're going out when you're 14, 15 and you want to chase girls, everyone's a wannabe garage DJ or MC, right? Um, that's where we went. And I'm out with my mates and we're doing all this stuff, but equally, I'm gagging to get home and just learn Led Zeppelin,
Mm.
learn Hendrix. The woodshed years of any good musician, like when you have all the time in the world, but also because
Yeah.
you've got the energy and enthusiasm. I mean, I remember like there's those amazing kind of 20-minute long versions of Red House that Hendrix did live.
Mm.
I would sit there for hours and try and learn the whole 18-minute, which no, what is, first of all, hindsight's love, what is the point? But, really just bury myself. So a lot of it was classic. And then heavy, I was really into my heavy music.
Mm.
And the Metallica bandwagon I got on late. So I kind of went back in time with them post kind of Black Album and loads, but then discovered Machine Head. Like that first Machine Head album was still one of my favorites. It's incredible. Um, and then I'm going to see the Datsuns in a few
Mm.
weeks. I still think that's one of the greatest debut albums ever. So that's more 2000-ish, but
Mm.
every time they come to London, I go and see them. I think they're just one of the best rock bands. Love them.
Mm.
So a lot of the household names, nothing too groundbreaking, or, I was there at the beginning, apart from the
Yeah.
Datsuns, maybe a bit. Um, but, then there's the geeky guitar stuff that I got
Mm.
more into as you become a stronger player. And that's all the kind of virtuoso and, more kind of hours in your bedroom while your mates are out dancing to garage, and drum and bass and things. So, yeah, all the good stuff, man. Love it. Still love it.
Mm. Um, of course, as we mentioned earlier, you're about to have this kind of, well, go out for the first time with a new vocalist, obviously Andrew joining the band. Um, for a start, how did you kind of land on him? Because obviously, everybody, I think with any band, when you get a new singer come in, everybody's always kind of waiting, aren't they? Because it's the sound of it's the voice of the band. It's difficult,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Um, it's, the whole thing's really weird because also if you think of that lineup with John,
Hmm.
pretty solid for
It's
you
a
know
while.
we've been
Yeah.
on the scene properly since probably a year before the debut came out. Like people were
Hmm.
aware of us with the singles before, so that's 9 years,
Hmm.
right? So that there's also this isn't, oh, they've changed after a few years.
Yeah.
It's a good bloody stint. Um, one way I described it to me is because it's weird. It's weird, Ryan. It's like online dating or so because you I approached Andrew.
Yeah.
He didn't know, and so you're writing these messages, and you've got to sell yourself.
Hmm.
So your best foot first. You're basically kind of giving the pitch, enough of the pitch in the first message to entice them in. If they get it, blah blah blah, then you can go more. So that's what I mean. You're literally just you're selling yourself straight away, because you're not going to be an arrogant prick and
Hmm.
say, "Look, you're lucky enough. There's a slot. I know you want it." No one, anyone that we want to work with shouldn't reply to that because they should go. So that honestly, it was that side of things was weird. I was like, God, actually, how do I make us
Hmm.
attractive, enticing, and blah blah blah, and welcome, all that good stuff. But the great thing about Andrew is the kind of cool story in this day and age is we played really early. So going back to when I was saying how old that original lineup is,
Hmm.
we played a gig with Andrew and his old band, Trident Waters, at that great North London, sadly gone, rock bar called Big Red in used to be in Holloway. Did you ever go?
No, I didn't go
But it
myself.
was it was great. It was modelled on those kind of classic American rock bars,
Hmm.
like straight out of a film. It was like a film set for like 90s rock bars type thing. It was really
Hmm.
cool. Like, Harleys hanging from the ceiling and all that stuff,
Hmm.
neon lights. Um, if you didn't have a Jack Daniels at some point, you get kicked out and all that stuff. Really cool. And a music match. So it was a great kind of place and venue. So anyway, we did a gig with him many years ago. Um, I'm talking good 7 years ago, maybe. And that's how I first met him. Really dig the band. And, there's that lovely thing that, musicians and bands, we're all very well mannered and polite, but you also have an eye for talent when you spot it.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget, I was like, oh, they're good. And that's because of him. Like
Hmm.
he's really cool. He's really good. Really good. I like these guys. And we hit it off. He's a dude. He's really cool. He lived in London back then. Um, and we just stayed in touch sporadically, kind of over the years, and just following each other's paths and releases and getting into it. Like I always looked out for the stuff he was releasing because I just rated him. And we got in touch, and we tried to get them on the same bill as us and supports a few times. It never quite worked out. Blah blah blah. But always that correspondence was good. And the main, we're old enough and ugly enough now. One of the main criteria is don't be a dick. It's the first rule in life for any job, right? You just like, do you get it? Are you going to fit in? Because musically, there's always going to be an element if it takes time.
Hmm.
Because and also because that's the organic rock we do. It's going to take time, but can I work with you? Or are you going to be a pain in the ass or completely misaligned with expectations? Blah blah blah. And Andrew's a dude, and he's so talented, so talented. It's great.
Of course, I'm sure many of the fans have seen, the pictures. Obviously, you've done rehearsals, preparing. When you did that kind of first, I suppose, audition, or when he gets in the room, did it feel like there was a good chemistry there? I mean, you're saying obviously it can take time, but was there at least a foundation of something? Obviously you felt that there's something there clearly.
So it's kind of good he's not here. Actually, I can kind of talk about him easier when he's not on the screen, right? No, because it's all just full of praise, really. As in, you use a great word, audition.
Mm,
I haven't done this in a long time. The guys haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, I was like, look, ah, it's such a nasty word. It can't, we all know it is, but let's not call it that.
Mm,
And it goes back to my point earlier. Let's not, I don't want us to go away and talk and mark his playing, his technique, and did he get
mm,
this lyric or that note, blah, blah, blah. Can we work with him? If he turns up and he completely cocks up, then we can't because the attitude's wrong. But I'm not expecting him to come in. I don't expect anyone to come in and nail it 10 out of 10. Like you
mm,
just like it's you're just not going to. But is there enough talent there? Can we work with him? And there's that lovely thing of like, you don't want to take the piss out of airtime as well. So we did class like, look, learn 3 tracks. Here's 3 tracks, learn them. Um, and Andrew just gets it, man. Like he learned 5
mm,
and nailed them. And you have that thing that you just all want, which was, oh yeah, like you've lit because your expectations are managed appropriately. But I was like, fucking hell, you just lifted, like you're lifting the rope. Like
mm,
we hadn't played, it was a funny time of year because it's December and all that.
mm.
And you have that natural gap. Like we hadn't played in a while, but a couple of months. I remember me and Scott was like, fucking hell, like he's more prep than us. Like some of the boys play this dog. That lovely thing. But
Mm,
I can't stress enough the early days. I've genuinely been blown away, blown away, and that's almost disconcerting to him and his talent. But I'm so buzzing and excited. Like he is owning this and just nailing it, and it's really I can't my own expectations from the whole process and just being like, no, it's a journey, we'll get through it, blah blah blah.
mm,
Now I'm like, man, like, let's just do this tour and then take over the world again because the sky's the limit. Honestly, and I think what I'm really hoping is his journey will be like maybe he'll discover quite how good he is with this and
mm,
really grow into it. It's that exciting for us at the moment.
mm. I mean, that's interesting that, you feel that he's kind of almost unaware of of the level he could hit.
Well, I think it's that natural thing of it's new,
Mm,
it's all new, and at the end of the day, he's still even no matter how much you tell someone, don't be like this. When all they've got is that, they will do it. And what I mean is, it's like, look, we're not looking to replace John. That's
mm,
moved. John, we've done our thing. It was great. Be you.
yeah.
But naturally, all his only reference is John and his bass line. So he'll go off, which is perfectly human and normal, right? Like that's not a
Mm,
criticism at all. Um, the way he's nailing it at the moment, in my head, I'm like, God, in 6 months, when it's more of you and you had your own, like, it's just going to be fucking great.
mm. Um, looking back at obviously you've done 2 records now.
Great.
Oh yes, 3. Um, I always forget. You see, I always forget about that original one. I always think Mojo Skyline and Loco Paradise, and I always forget about that first one. But yeah, you've done 3 records now. Um, do you guys feel that, because you've had that chemistry, as that kind of helped, just bringing in one member, you haven't, as you say, you've been this unit now for a number of years. There's only kind of one piece to kind of put together now. Have you felt that there's, your how you work has kind of changed over the years from that beginning, that first record?
Um, I don't think we're there yet
Hmm.
because at the moment, there's kind of 2 answers to this, really. At the moment, we're just, in terms of New World, version 2.0,
Hmm.
it's just live stuff we're focusing on,
Yeah.
getting ready for this tour. Because, I'm sure songwriting will come onto in a bit,
Hmm.
but that's part of the whole thing, right? And how we get into that world, which I'm not worried about at all. Um, the the other thing is though, in terms of how we work as a unit, before we even started, the process, the search, looking for people, approaching people. Um, I wouldn't have done it if Scott and Tony weren't bought in,
Mm,
because they are incredibly fundamentally important and part of the dust coda that, if say one of them wasn't into it and they jogged on, it's like, no, it's a new band. It's actually, admit it, it's a new band, and can I be bothered to find a bass player as well and all this stuff? And you've got to think of your energy in the journey. Um, the fact that they were, let's look, let's try. Um, was fantastic. So I couldn't have done it without them. And the great thing is, all the enthusiasm I just mentioned,
mm,
how Andrew's just fitted in and the songs are sounding, they're the same. So they get it. They're like, wow, this is really cool. This is really great. Um, so that side in terms of a unit, and then you know going on to, like, the next album and all that stuff.
mm,
Um, it'll be a new way of doing it, but I I don't think it'll be that different. It'll just be a different person,
mm,
because the music we do isn't going to drastically change. It's the band's DNA. It's our identity. It's what we do.
mm,
And so far, you mentioned albums. I'm incredibly proud of what we have done. We're all right. We're pretty all right at it. I love the product. Um, so that side of things, yeah, it's part of the journey, which makes it quite cool.
mm.
It'd be really lame if I sat down and was like, right, guys, this is how it's all going to work. Nah, nah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's exciting.
Mm. Um, obviously we mentioned there 3 records so far. Do you have kind of, obviously you've just brought in somebody, but do you have kind of a plan after the tour? Do you think maybe I might do a little bit of writing here? I mean, what's the process with that? Or will
Uh,
it now completely be different?
So the obvious one, the references beforehand, it
Mm,
was John and I.
yeah.
Have a pool of ideas, bash them together, triage, and you come out with the top ones, and we work on and blah 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 songs. Um, now it's Andrew.
Mm,
So I've got a healthy pile of stuff, um, which I'm really excited about. But what I'm personally keen on is I want him to be part of the journey from day one,
mm,
because it goes back to getting the probably the best out of him. When he feels he's part of that original stuff, and it's maybe his own hook or lyric that he's written, he's gonna sing it 10 times prouder and louder, because it's human nature.
mm,
It's not big, it's just a normal thing to do. And the enthusiasm, the input should probably start. The guy's made albums, he knows how to do it, he
mm,
writes good stuff. um I'm looking forward to working with him, really saying, right, here's the song I've got, what do you think? Duh, 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 duh. Equally saying to him, what have you got? Because I
mm,
know he'll have a pile of ideas. Have you got any good riffs? You're gonna, it's so just honestly starting it from scratch and just seeing how it flows. But in terms of finishing tour and blah blah blah, what I have said to the guys is, by the end of this year, let's be making demos for the next album.
mm,
And that's just having a pile of songs ready that we go into pre-prod, and we track them live at this great amazing studio called Otterhead Studios. That's what we did for the last album. It's brilliant. We just all get in a room for 2 days. It's a very elaborate, over the top way of doing demos. It's very self-indulgent from a musical point of view, but a it's so fucking cool. It's great. No, but you get a vibe. But the other thing is, to do that, you rehearsed so tight.
mm,
The only way that last album sounded so good was because of how good the band were
mm,
beforehand. Like, everyone was on the money from all their parts, and that includes lyrically and vocally. Um, we were just so in it and absorbed, and that starts that process. There's no like, oh, am I doing this? It's like, no, you execute, and then you've got a little bit of room to have fun and think of ideas. But it was really good, and a different way for us as well. And I just think proved dividends. Like it was just amazing.
I mean, do you find? I mean, you mentioned, kind of doing it almost live. Um, do you? I assume that you've done it the other way, kind of the more newer way. Do you kind of, when you had a taste of that, did you think, this is how I want to be doing records from this point? Did it kind of ruin
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
way?
no, no, it's interesting. It got discussed a lot when the album came out because it definitely has a more live feel,
Yeah.
and it was never the intention. So the demo stuff I was on about before, that was always we track live because
Mm,
that's just a blueprint to the songs, and you can map it, put it in lot. You can do all this. It's pre-prod for a reason, and also most importantly, we get really good demos to give to the label, and they get bought in. So they go, yeah, cool, right. Here's a check, make an album. Because that's really important. Because they joke about, oh, these guys send us something from the shower and they don't have a clue. And it just
mm,
expedites that process. So it's good in that sense. But back to like the live thing. First of all, it's not a live album. And well, no, because but there was a lot of PR at the time, and people were like, "Yeah," and it was live. It's like, no, it wasn't.
yeah,
You can hear
some
the
of the
overdubs,
albums
mate.
kind
I've only
of,
got
yeah.
two hands. Like, you know, John's only got one voice. He can't sing eight times at the same time, right? But that was so it was a different producer for the first time.
Mm,
Clint Murphy did the first two albums. His approach was always, and in a great way, because they sound fantastic, more clinical, comping, chopping up parts, going through. Charlie Russell did the last album. The sounds were incredible. Like we went to Chapel Studios up in I think it's Rugby or Leicestershire, Lincolnshire. Um, but like Blur have been there, Oasis, UFO were in there before the week before us, and
yeah.
the name Chapel because it's part of a church, so you got this massive live room, and the drum sounds were just gorgeous. Let alone the amps in there and everything else, but the drums on this album I adore, and he basically created a vibe that we all got
Mm,
wet into it. That he was like, no, he just basically, I wanted to capture that. So some of them, and I've got different ears because I can hear from, I relate it to who was doing what when. I'm like, God, that's like half a take. He hasn't chopped it. I can hear it.
mm.
I remembered that. That's when, and we call Tony two takes for a reason. He was basically on holiday. He only did about 20 minutes work every day. Like went in. Like, but that's a fantastic compliment because he is
Mm,
insanely talented. Like really. Um, so I think that was Charlie's take on the album of having done it with us. That it came out definitely sounding more organic and live. So not intentional, but I think it was a celebration of the recording process at the time. And it's the first time we all recorded together back to back. So we
mm.
just went in for a week, lived and breathed it, and it was just great.
Do you feel that that's something you want to bring forward with you into this kind of new era, that process, or is it like per album it's going to be a different thing?
It's a great question, one that we've talked about. Definitely, we will try and all be there together at the same time.
Mm,
So that bit was just a huge because it's that camaraderie pushing each other back, because I remember the past albums before, Scott went in and did his drums on his own for 3 days.
mm.
He's in a room smashing drums on his own, trying to, and he absolutely nailed it. But
It's hard to bounce off people, I think. I think
exactly,
you can
um,
have like even just a bit of input from somebody, isn't it? It's
all of that stuff, and
mm,
um, it's just, he loved it because it's indulgent, but at the same
mm,
time, yeah, the pros outweigh the cons. So we'll definitely all do it together because it was just great. Um, the the songs dictate the sound.
mm.
Whilst I mentioned before, I don't, whilst we're changing singer, I don't see us going on. We're not going to go on a huge tangent sound wise or anything, but we need to write songs first and worry about sound later. they come first. If I sat here and said, "Oh yeah, we're going for this, this, and this," you're writing the songs for the wrong reasons.
Mm.
So
I imagine
yeah.
at that point it'd be trying to kind of shoehorn in. Like if you feel like you're being taken in this direction, I think it's probably best to at least see what happens with it, right?
Oh, completely. And then yeah, you know,
Mm.
there's got to be a degree of honesty. And then, you write songs and then you challenge yourself, right? Because the great thing is the more experience you get in making albums,
Mm.
they get more confident and thinking out the box. What can you add to this? Why haven't we done like I really want to get strings on the next one. We haven't ticked the strings box, right? Just for even if it's for 30 seconds, I just want to fucking do it because it's a cool thing and you only live once.
Yeah.
Type thing, right? All
Mm.
those little snippets, but I'm not gonna write a song for the sake of having strings.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably sound really contrived and obvious and crap. We'll get found out. But do you know what I mean? So you take them down and go, right, how do we elevate these?
Mm.
And then or some it's like nah, it doesn't need it. It's so we sound amazing, leave it. Some of them so and that's a I love that stuff. That's what part of it's about. But he needs the song. We always had a rule and we still will. If it doesn't sound great just on acoustic guitars, it's not
Mm.
good enough. You don't have the song.
Mm. So you start when you're doing this, do you start on an acoustic? Is that where it all kind of begins?
If oh mate, if we had the time, like you could go for each song and each one had its own journey.
Mm.
But that's where we were yin and yang, John and I, and that's why the chemistry was great songwriting wise, and why the song sounded so good. Because my point being, he would, because he would naturally think vocally led.
Mm.
We're a guitar band. I would be like riffs and hooks, and then build that. I'd score the music, and then when you combine the two,
Mm.
you get a great product because you get a bit of what you know a rock band should sound like, but equally disciplined enough through that, those writing processes. I'd be like, man, that's just a Bob Dylan cover. There's not, there's nothing we can do with it. And then, and then eventually great equally go to me and go, fucking like that's a Paul Gilbert instrumental. What you doing? And all that, so it's fun, you'd
Mm.
have that, which is healthy. Um, but to your question, very, as you know, we're very riff driven. You need that
Mm.
hook. It's a guitar band, blah blah blah, and we'd start like that, and it's easy and it's organic to get in the room and jam with the band and all that stuff. Once we get it laid down and we've got the melodies and top lines, can I, if I strum this, are those hooks strong enough? Is that chorus good enough? And
Mm.
then all of a sudden it's like, God, that's great. And it's like I never would have come up with that if I didn't have that riff to start with. Because
Mm.
that's what got me in the mood and made me think like that and sing like that and all that stuff. So it's definitely part of it, but it's almost like a litmus test. Think of it that way.
Mm. I mean, obviously, we're talking about kind of the riffs. I mean, you've got quite a few of them already. Um, is there a process when you're coming up with a riff? I mean, are you just kind of like tinkering around or?
It's like a lot of them. It's the classic thing of like couch playing,
Mm.
and you never you're being lazy, but if something might prick your ear, and then you play for a bit, you might develop a pattern. Blah blah. I whack loads of ideas in my phone,
Mm.
and I love it because the amount of times you'll go back and you go, that's awful. Or sometimes, you hear something like, okay, that's cool. Um, yeah, I find if you, and it's different for some people,
Mm.
if you diarize, if you're like, right, we're writing now. I've got to get an album written by the end of the year. It's like, right, 2 hours, 4 nights a week, 2 hours, I'm going to go and write. I'm going writing. You come out with shit.
Mm.
If you force it, like if people are honest, you come up with lots of stuff to go through. I bet a lot of it's not good. Um, that maybe sometimes. Sorry, some people that works, but a lot of it's just gonna be, you just it depends what mood you're in, um, and all that stuff. Depends where you
Mm.
are in your rig. A lot of it. Sometimes I might be at rehearsal early and I've got everything cranked and what comes out. Some of it has been in the studio, some of the songs, some of it home acoustic. And like I said, a lot of it's just as long as you're playing enough, stuff just comes out. I think if you force it, meh.
It's interesting because, I spoke with quite a few guitarists and they all have kind of their own way. Like there's no set particular way of
What
doing it.
works
Like
for you?
everybody wants to know kind of the magic or,
Yeah.
and it's a cliche, isn't it? Going, oh, there's no way, but it's so different per person.
It's also important to be challenged because there was a lot of, some of the great songs we've done
Mm,
when, John would come up with a song and he'd be like, write a riff to this. And I'm like, God, but the riff comes first, but it's not. Shit. No, but you know what I mean? So you've also
yeah.
got to, it's very easy for how the way I just answered, say, oh no, it's
Mm,
relaxed and blah, blah, blah. But, equally, you got to push yourself and challenge yourself because you can go into, hear music, you just jam along and noodling, blah, blah, blah. But you got to sit back and listen, right? What's the color palette here? What's the mood? What does this need? Right. Okay, that's the vibe. I get it. Right, I'm gonna go, and then you work with it. So you've
mm,
definitely got, there's different art forms and layers. So definitely and that's what, going back to earlier, working with Andrew will be really interesting.
mm. Of course, as mentioned there, you have this tour with Bad Touch starting on March 6th. Um, I'm sure there'll be people that will have never seen you guys before, so not with John or it'll be all new. So what would be the expectation? If you could say to a new person, what are they gonna get from you guys?
God, that's a great question. What are they going to get from us? I mean, if you've never met the Dust Coda or, listened to our music before,
Hmm.
you better be into rock music, otherwise you're going to be very disappointed. So that's the first important caveat. It's like we are unashamedly rock and roll. There's no grey areas, right? It's what we do. Um, so with that in mind, um, we put a lot of heart and soul into the live albums because we love it,
Mm,
absolutely adore it. We're not a bedroom band, we're not a studio band. We are very much, we did like all good bands, we did this because we buzz off gigs, right? We buzz off playing. So we put the energy in and that transfers in a lot of the type of songs we write, even the more melodic stuff, because they're very powerful and emotive when they sometimes. So you get into it. So it's just gonna be great. I can't wait. Like full on energy. We're buzzing to get out there again. Like you say, meet new fans, meet old, and put on a great show. Bad Touch we've known, show, showing my age here, but and those boys we know, but we've known them for years since the
mm,
beginning of our journey, like before the debut album.
mm.
Um, we've shared stages with them. One of our first festivals, Wayfest, we shared a stage of them. Our first Planet Rockstock in the smaller stage in the bar. Is it the Graham Harding stage now? I think, top of my head. But a small stage next door. First time we did that, they were on after us. So those early days we've been hawking around with them. So quite actually looking forward to being on the road with them, hanging out properly for a bit as well. Because
Because you've never done a co-headline before, have you?
no, it's been offered a few times, it's never worked and all that stuff. It's a thing. I get it, and um, it's a perfect time because like kind of boring band management stuff is we're not on a promotion cycle,
Hmm.
so it's good to get out there, and neither are they. So it's a sensible thing to do. Um, So yeah, looking forward to it in that sense. Like co-headline, the fans will get two great bands, but not for half an hour each, right? They get a good hour set plus.
Mm.
Um, So it's a pretty great lineup of strong rock music, really.
A question I always like to finish on, ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. Uh, if you could tour with one band from the past and one from the present, who would they be, do you think?
And past,
Mm.
I think, oh God, they don't exist as a band, but they all are alive. So am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Cool. The Rage Against the Machine.
Mm.
I
It's
mean
an
that.
interesting choice.
I mean, just wow. Saw them when I was 14. They were supporting Kiss. And
Wow, that's a
so
weird
first,
combination on
check
paper.
this out, right? I was 14 years old. It was Kiss in the Park. It was their first ever UK show, and everyone heard about this band from America, and they really swear in this song. It's really good. Um, because no real internet and smartphones back then, and all
Mm.
that stuff. The lineup, you had L7, Three Colors Red, Skunk Anansie, Thunder, Rage Against the Machine, and Kiss. And basically,
Mm.
Rage Against the Machine came on for 40 minutes, and I didn't know what hit me. I was just like, I was like, 40, I had curtains, I think. And I was just like, wow, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just wow. So Kiss, sorry, Rage Against the Machine for previous. Current, oh my God, current.
Mm.
Mm.
Because I mean, you got kind of like you opened technically for Guns N' Roses. Obviously, that was that Hyde Park
I'm
gig.
claiming opening. I'm taking that with me to my grave. We
I know
got
there
the
was a few
poster.
others, but
Yeah, we
you were
did.
still
You're
there,
right,
you
right.
know.
We did. Um, no, I know what you mean. That's like major bucket list pinch.
Mm.
And also hanging out with, Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden, like
Oh,
mental.
yeah.
Um, you could argue in terms of past, we supported Mammoth and, his dad. Wow, that would have been some gig. But God, current, that's a great question. Ah, one of my favorite albums from last year, Pearl Jam. Now one of my favorite bands in the world.
Mm.
Like huge, huge fan. Huge fan. And I thought that album they've done recently is just exquisite. Exquisite. So yeah, Rage Against the Machine, Pearl Jam.
That's interesting. Very 90s centric. I think a lot of people would
Yeah, it's
think,
going back to the way we started the chat, right?
yeah. Well, it's been really cool speaking with you, Adam. And of course, for those that want to grab a ticket to that the new era of Dust Coda with Bad Touch, that co-headline, you can via the link in the description below. That starts on March 6th.
Do
Thursday
it.
night, so leading into a weekend. Um, and start it right, right? Um,
Absolutely.